I'm Dr. Laura Rodriguez, the interim superintendent. I was your interim a year ago, back again. I also was a principal here back in 2005 through 2008, I think it was, when they had a middle and a high school principal. I was the middle school principal then. So I am familiar with the district and lots of people, which is always a plus. And I want to introduce my colleague, my former colleague. We can answer each other's sentences, I think, now. We've worked together quite a while in Newtown. I was principal there and superintendent, and Mark Pompano is the director currently of security in Newtown Public Schools. We have done a lot of work together, not just in the schools. We've done a lot of consulting. We just finished a huge audit of safety and security, New Britain Public Schools. I think there were 18 buildings.
20.
Wow.
20. It was months and months of work. So we want to talk to you tonight, through experience. Mark was also an LAPD, Los Angeles police officer way back when. I don't know what years that was, way back when.
92 to 2008.
And has a lot of experience working with Homeland Security, local and state authorities. So we've used Mark's expertise on many levels. I also brought him in when I was interim a year ago to work with our administrators during a retreat on safety and security. So he's back again. He's going to actually do all 3 meetings with me when it comes to safety and security. Just so you know, I walked into this coming back in. These were all scheduled. There was one at each elementary school, but I was actually thrilled to know I would be doing these because this is my wheelhouse. And it was lucky for me that it just landed on safety and security, and we can certainly speak to that. So we will reserve for questions tonight, but I wanted to really clarify what the purpose is, because I know there's all kinds of things floating around, obviously, about the elementary buildings and what to do with our elementary buildings, but we're really here to share for this purpose best practices in safety and security. That's critical. We want to talk to you certainly from our experience, and Mark has much more experience even than I do and expertise, but we want to use the facts and relevant details from this building, from WPS. And we want to talk to you about other internal security measures that happen. Really has nothing to do with the building. Whether it's new, old, shared, or not, there are some security measures that have to happen and should happen no matter what is decided. And then we'll allow time for thoughts and questions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll turn it over to Mark for this part.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here. It's nice to see you all. I hope that you find the presentation informative, and Lori and I definitely want you to ask questions at the back end if you have any, and I really hope you do. A comprehensive school security program cannot be summed up in one word or consist of solely of one facet. Lessons that I learned during my years in law enforcement, and as well as during my tenure as director of school security in Newtown since 2008, are 3 things. School security consists of multifaceted approaches. School security cannot be conducted in a vacuum. It requires an all-in approach. And by all-in, I mean not only from the superintendent level down, but from bottom up, teachers, staff, students, parents, administrators. Everyone needs to have an all-in approach. And school security cannot remain static. We always need to be striving to improve upon our quality through continuous improvement. And by quality and improvement, I mean things like training, structural design, technology, personnel, things of that nature. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta leave it on the wheel.
Sorry.
There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant go.
So this is how we've used security. Lori and I, my team at SEAL, and how we look at it in Newtown. Planning, have an emergency operations plan that's functional, that administrators and staff know the plan, and have ready access to the plan. Things such as what to do during a chemical spill, what to do if you have a trespasser in the school, what to do if you have a bomb threat, and unfortunately, these spam call bomb threats are getting more and more popular throughout the country. Or something as inane as a rabid raccoon on the playground, things like that. However, probably the most critical part of the planning component is communications. It remains a challenge. It's a challenge in Newtown. It's a challenge for police departments all over the country, especially in the age of cell phones. The kids are 10 steps ahead of us. So it's important to have a communications plan where you have one point of information coming out, whether it's the superintendent or the assistant superintendent, and that the message is timely, but most importantly, it's accurate. Because again, we're not going to beat the kids texting off their phones, but we do need to have a component of communication to get it out there promptly and that it's accurate information.
Can I just add too, I remember after Sandy Hook, we decided not to come down so hard on kids with phones, by the way. And I know that was a big thing in many schools where, put your phone away. And we honestly kind of backed away from that because we wanted kids to be able to have their phones if something should happen. And we could, so there are schools of thought, and you always have to negotiate those things.
It's definitely a balancing act for sure. Having a command structure, no matter what it is, somebody needs to be in charge. This proved very challenging when you intermingle educators with law enforcement, with fire department. Everybody needs to come together and work in a command structure. It's called the Incident Command System through the National Incident Management System. This is how we've trained in Newtown since the tragedy. And basically it's a system that allows those three components to work together. We're all on the same page. There's a representative in the command post from each entity. One source of information going out, but everybody shares a piece of the responsibility for bringing an incident to the rightful conclusion. One of the things we run into with command structure is the person in charge. It doesn't necessarily have to be the highest ranking person. So it doesn't need to be the superintendent or the principal. If you had a teacher here with prior military experience, or not even a teacher, any staff member with prior military experience or law enforcement experience, they probably are the most qualified person to serve in that role as incident commander. And that's one of the toughest sells I can tell you from experience of when it comes to school administration, working in that type of situation. Training, and this goes beyond. Every month we do. We're required by state law to do an emergency drill. Back in the old days, it used to be a monthly fire drill. We could all do fire drills in our sleep. So could kids. The alarm sounds, the buzzer rings. Everybody stands up, we walk out the nearest door, and we wait until they all clear to go back in the building. So training, we need to do other things. Training for lockdowns, training in how do you do, I don't know what you call it here in Region 12, lock-in, reverse evacuation, safe school mode.
Yep.
It's when there's a problem outside the building and your kids are out at recess when you want them to come in. In Newtown, we call it safe school mode. But drills like that, it's enhancing your fire drills. Instead of the buzzer rings, you get up and you walk out. Make it more challenging. Block an exit and say, "There's fire here." Block a hallway. Block a stairwell. Get people to think, "Hey, what happens if we're so used to being normal?" Get people thinking, students and staff, of what they would do different in the event that they couldn't take their regular path. Conducting tabletop exercises, and whether it's at faculty meetings or something special like we did in the summer, I think is a great way to get everybody in that mode of being all in when it comes to safety and security and to know what to do in any given situation.
So what we did, just what Mark is referring to. So I mentioned that we did a retreat with the administrators last year. We actually did a kind of tabletop exercise where Mark walked with all of the administrators and we were observing and doing a perimeter check. and Mark had planted a box, right, a package, so to speak, kind of hidden but near a bush. What would you say if you saw it? What would you do? Would you tell someone? It looks innocuous, right? But it might not be. So it was things like that to get people to really observe and be more conscious of things like that.
And we have to find the right balance. I'm not one for, and you hear these horror stories sometimes, where they're doing a lockdown drill or an active shooter drill in some school, and they have somebody actually firing rubber or foam projectiles at staff, which I think is absolutely crazy.
You don't need that.
We don't need that. Yeah, we don't want that. We want something between doing nothing and that. That's what we strive to do. Training also, there's different things you can do. I don't know if you use Vector Solutions, formerly Safe Schools. The training for staff, no? It's an online program.
Not that I'm aware.
That's one program that's available. We use it in Newtown. All staff get that training right at the onset of the school year every year in safety and security. It's about a half-hour block. Also, you want to get the word out to parents as well, so parents understand what at least your basic emergency response procedures mean. So if a parent gets a message, Washington School is in shelter-in-place mode, what does that mean? So at the onset of the school year, maybe with the back to school packets, if you do those still, you put information in there outlining this is what this means. So they're not in the dark, and that's the best thing you can do is give them information up front so they're not calling the school during an actual incident when you're trying to negotiate that. Structural enhancement. Structural enhancement covers a lot of things. It covers fencing, bollards, which are the posts or concrete planters that prevent a vehicle from driving up on your school, shatter-resistant glass, visitor vestibules, some people call them man traps, where you have a double-doored system in your main entrance where you can buzz a visitor through the first set of doors, kind of look them over, give them a visual screening, and then buzz them in the second set of doors. Surveillance cameras, installing intruder-style locks on the doors. Don, I walked to schools with Don the other day, and kudos to Don for putting the thumb latch on the inside of the doors. By intruder-style locks, it means a teacher would never have to go into the hallway to lock their door. That was the old style locks where there was no mechanism inside to lock the door, either by key or by thumb. But what Don did here, phenomenal. Personnel. In Newtown, I will tell you, in 2008, when I started, there was myself and 3 school security officers, all unarmed. We worked primarily out of the high school. From 12/14/2012, the day of the tragedy, till now, there has never not been an armed person in any of our schools. So right now, there's myself, and I have 20 school security officers that work for me. 8 who are armed, 2 who are armed substitutes, and the rest are unarmed. I have 2 armed and 4 unarmed at the high school alone. Is it expensive? Yes, but is it something that's needed? To me, a school secretary should never be tasked with dealing with what I know they deal with in the main office, answering the phones and working with the principal and things, to have to worry about somebody at the door who's buzzing in and looking at them through a camera. So your security personnel, even if you started with 1 or 2, would go a long way in being able to at least keep eyes on the perimeter and see who's coming in the building and checking them before they actually go in. Lastly, community partnerships. Shortly after Sandy Hook happened in Newtown, John Reed, who was the superintendent there for 20 years, he came back as the interim superintendent, and he started, because he knew he had a lot of wisdom, a lot of foresight. After the tragedy happened, he said, Mark, I'm not going to let you, fly out there in the wind by yourself. We're going to start a district-wide security and safety committee. He said, but he goes, I don't want it to seem like it's coming down from me. So I'm going to have you co-chair it with the president of the Newtown Federation of Teachers Union. I thought he was crazy, but it's a great partnership. Tom has since retired. Now I work with Trent, but it's a great partnership because where I could get administrators to buy in and custodians to buy in. A lot of teachers were hesitant, so I had that element of the union president there to kind of push them along again to get everybody on board.
But it also included local police,
Yeah, so
parents, paras, staff, administrators.
the private schools.
Private schools and Catholic schools in town. So it was, and John Jay College, which worked with us through the tragedy and afterwards, who runs the criminal justice program at John Jay. We had all of those people at the table. And I will tell you, a lot got done.
And we still do. John Jay College, we have a professor who's the number 2 in charge of the criminal justice program, who's our subject matter expert. We meet now. Before we used to meet when we first got this together twice a month and once a month. Now we meet quarterly, but we get a lot of things done, and it's group thought. Everybody there signs a non-disclosure agreement because we want the free exchange of information to be done in that room. So we're with this group, we're able to get a lot of things done. And again, we have a parent representative on it, which is huge because she's also a PTA president. And the word spreads that we take safety and security serious.
And it really doesn't matter that Newtown's bigger or any other school is smaller. It's the partnership that's critical, right? Okay. So thank you, Mark, because what you shared was critically important, but this is key, being prepared, right? That's what we want from any school, any administrator is to, what does that mean? What does it look like in every school? And I will tell you that there are 5 key strategies, and Mark hit on many of those. But we have to start to look at how do we evaluate and refine our school security measures? Are they in place? Number 1, do we see them? Are they visible? And are they working? Does everyone speak the same language? And I will tell you, and I'll get to in a minute, what we do for preparedness and even posting what that looks like. You mentioned lockdowns and things like that. We want every new staff member, everyone in the community to know what that language is, obviously. Updating and exercising school emergency preparedness plans. That's a plan that we have across the district, as Mark was mentioning. All of those things would be a piece of it. Do we have a safe school community or district-wide committee? Do we post things that I'm going to hand you out in a minute so that everybody knows what that emergency plan is in a summation? What does a lockdown mean? What is that language? What is secure school or shelter in place? What's the difference? And how do you know that difference? And when we use them. Strengthening partnerships with public safety officials. I think Mark hit on that well. We need to make sure we're in tandem with the police. And again, there's always that command structure, as you mentioned. Who's in charge when they arrive? Is it the fire chief? Is it the police chief, right? Those are things we have to know. And we have had, I will tell you, just when I was superintendent, you just had something recently around the holidays, every year post Sandy Hook, we had bomb threats, we had calls, and once I unfortunately had to evacuate the building. I mean, I had parents and kids hysterical because they're re-traumatized. So very difficult. And creating enhanced crisis communication plans and social media. Who's in charge of that? If you're all running around, who doesn't know, who's actually sending the message out to the community? Is it the superintendent? Well, I should be in a communication hub doing a lot of that. Or I may be needing to be somewhere because I happen to be there, right? That happened during the day we had to evacuate. I was driving, Mark made a decision. And I was on the way and they were already evacuating the building. So I didn't go back to central office. I had to make that command structure right there and do all my communication from that point. So it's those kinds of things so you're not falling over each other. And you'll talk to police, and I've talked to the Newtown police so many times to say, you know, are you guys all in sync? There's chaos no matter who you are and what, you know, authority you have. They experience that as well. So there's always got to be a lot of training and retraining. And even in our schools, you know, we have to do it yearly. People forget. I'll share with you and I'll pass them around just so you know, these are everywhere. So yeah, you are, that's right, you know, just so everyone understands that language. And this is a good thing. I'm going to share concerns too, certainly, when we're looking at WPS, but I want to share all the good things that we have in place.
So also
Oh,
at
absolutely. Go ahead.
WPS, we have a building-based emergency protocols that are very specific to our site. So every staff member has an emergency folder with all of those identified and the protocols sort of listed out, and we practice those regularly. In addition, you can see on the wall there, you'll see a blue backpack. Everyone has one of those. Those are called our emergency bags. And inside those, there are specific, equipment in case we are away from our school for a period of time that we can possibly help with.
These are all pluses, right? I want to give you all the positives that schools do, regardless if it's old or new, right? There are internal measures that we have to always have in place. On to you. I talked about Mark and I doing a major audit for a very large urban school. A lot of the criteria, if you were audited, and we use, I'm sorry, the criteria from the, thank you.
National Clearinghouse for Educational Facilities.
So I have it on my phone. We used FieldWire. We downloaded all the criteria and there was a lot. And we would go school to school and it would take us hours. And we would audit the school and look at the criteria and assess whether they had it or not. And a lot of what you see here is part of that. So when you ask us about best practices, things like panic buttons, do you have fencing? Is there two-way communication? I'll let Mark finish, but I wanted you to know what this actually is when it comes to school safety.
This is the layering model for school security. Okay, so picture Washington Primary School here. We want to start on the perimeter and work our defenses in, so to speak. So the green is the dark green is the outer perimeter, where you would be looking for things such as fencing, foliage, trees, gates, signage, things that would tell a person that this is a school, or you're near school grounds. Why is something like signage important? Because nobody can come back and say, well, I didn't know I was on the property. So that's your outer.
Or I didn't know I was in the wrong door in the back where you shouldn't have been trying to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your outermost. The olive or lighter green color is your next interior step. So you'd have things like two-way communications with people that you had walking the perimeter, whether it's a security officer or you assign it to staff members. Pavement markings, directing visitors where to go, like especially where the main office is. Environmental design. I'll show you that because I have a couple pictures of Sandy Hook School. But environmental design are little things that you don't really notice right away, but it makes the school safer, such as sloping the ground away from the building perimeter, things like that. And having a security presence at your main entrance driveway. Just things we have in Newtown. The yellow is right when you're approaching the school. Again, I mentioned the secure vestibule or man trap, the visitors, shatter resistant windows. Any piece of glass can be made shatter resistant by affixing a film to the glass. It's not bulletproof. I don't even like using the word bulletproof because I'm not going to be the test case to stand in front of the glass. Bullet resistant, but by applying a film to glass from the inside, you can make these windows shatter resistant, which means I would challenge anybody to walk up there with a sledgehammer and try to bust through. It would take 10 to 15 minutes of constant swinging. They'd be exhausted. So that's measures you can take. A phones, you have one at the school entrance here, and that's the buzzer system where you buzz and ask permission entry, and the secretary, who's now doing that, can see you. Visitor vetting and that, and simply ensuring that your exterior school doors are locked and secured. That is a duty probably on the principal or on the custodians during the day to make sure. And to make sure doors are locked and secured, you gotta have doors that actually function to be able to do that. But it's very important. I will tell you, when I first got to Newtown in 2008, none of the school doors were locked. That's how the world has changed that much in 16 years. But that's how it was. The orange section is when a person first, you're inside the building itself. Panic buttons. Don has panic buttons installed that put a voice over the loudspeaker. Universal keying system where teacher keys should be able to work almost any interior door in the school should they have to lock down during the lockdown. Surveillance cameras. I already mentioned the intruder style door locks. Staff photo IDs. I know you're a small school. In Newtown, one of the first things we did, besides making sure every door was locked, following Sandy Hook, was all our staff have to wear a lanyard with their ID badge visible. Okay, good. Having a card reader system for the staff IDs to be able to quickly get into the building in the event of emergency. Visitor management system. I don't know if you use Raptor here,
Yes.
so that's a really good system. We use it well in Newtown. Two-way radios for staff, which I believe you have, and student anonymous alert apps. There's a lot out there in Newtown. We use an app called Anonymous Alerts. We started it in just the high school and the middle school. Right before Lori left, we piloted it down to the elementary schools. It's a phone app, goes on the cell phone. It's free for students, it's free for parents. It gives them the opportunity to contact their whatever school they're in, that administrator one-on-one anonymously, or they could decide not to be anonymous, but they can report concerns to that administrator directly, and that administrator can respond. So have something like that is like an extra set of how many kids are in this school?
Oh, in this school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's like having 160 extra eyes in the school. And it's something to consider, and it's relatively inexpensive. Lastly, the red zone, we never want to be at the red zone or let it go that far. That's when you'd have to have armed school security officers or an armed SRO to deal with whatever the situation that takes you to this is. But also, you're going to fall back on your planning and training on your emergency response procedures. That's what it's going to come down to in a critical incident.
Well, and the reason for, I just wanted to point out the reason for the outside and you get into the middle is you don't want the perpetrator to get to the school. That's actually the best case scenario, right? That's why a lot of schools put up visitor, what do we call them? Yeah, shacks, whatever, shed at the onset, when you come up the driveway. So the more you can stop people outside before it gets here is obviously the most secure and safe.
You want to be able to
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You want to be able to stop somebody with malintent out here, to make them think. And again, I get back to the signage thing. If somebody sees these things and then they still decide, I'm gonna cross this threshold here, it's a visualization for staff to say, what is this person doing? It's almost like a built-in alert system, for staff. So the layering approach definitely works, definitely. Just want to show you, this is, has that anybody been to Sandy Hook School? Okay. For those of you who haven't, this is the front of Sandy Hook School, the main entrance. You can see the security cameras there. That school alone has 82 security cameras. In my book, it's definitely overkill, but there's 82 cameras spread out between the inside and the outside of the building. You can't see it has the A phone here. This glass here is what they call bullet resistant. All the glass here is all shatter resistant. When you talk about environmental design, I mentioned it. In the front here, it's hard to see. They call this a bioswale. It's like today with all the rain, it's a moat, basically. It goes, runs the whole front of the school. It's filled with water today. And then the ground on the other side of where the swale is slopes away from the school. And the purpose of that is if anybody ever approached the school with a long rifle, they cannot see down. If you had staff and students during a lockdown were against that wall, they can't get an angle up. And that's something that, again, they did with topography that people don't really notice. Next slide. This is the main lobby of Sandy Hook School. Again, all the glass. If you've never been, it's beautiful. It looks like a Tanger, from the front, it looks like a Tanger mall outlet to me.
And do they have that
Not
double
that I've been
vegetable
there.
too? Like, do they have that? What do you
Oh,
man
yeah.
trap?
Yeah, oh
They
yeah,
have
yeah,
like a man
yeah,
trap,
yeah. They have the man trap, yeah. Again, shatter resistant, but it's very open. So, you know,
Which you
It's-
wouldn't have
which-
thought they would have gone with,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
No, I
But
would
they
never
did.
guess that.
I guess they're not allowed to
They
just
they
shoot,
they
right?
secured it in other
Yeah.
ways, so it doesn't mean you have to be a
Yeah.
concrete.
Prison.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Right.
not at all.
Right.
So that's.
And the front
Yeah.
doors are extremely heavy. I mean, you need
Yeah.
it there. You feel that sense of yes.
Is there a security shed, so to speak, outside of Sandy Hook to buzz people into park?
So Sandy Hook's a little different, and we'll
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up because you make my main point. So here we have Sandy Hook School, and I'll get right to your question. We have Sandy Hook School, $50 million, every bell and whistle in
Yeah.
that school. So what did the parents with kids in the other schools? What did they say? What about my kid's
Yeah.
school?
Mhm.
So when you talk about that, trying to bring other
Yeah.
schools up to that standard, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Sandy Hook School is different in two ways. Number one, they have a main entry gate that's at least 100 yards down the hill from the building.
Right next to the fire.
Right, pretty much if you,
Yep.
right, it's near the front. So the security office is in the school, so they're able to vet visitors' cars down at that gate from that point, and either open the gate for them or the looky-loos. And thankfully, in the last 10 years, it's gotten a lot less because we have people like they thought, I don't know what they thought, it was some museum or something. We could turn them out. Just no, see ya. Make a left-hand turn there, and you're out. Newtown High School has a we call the welcome kiosk. It's one of the first things I purchased in 2008. It was a little shed, and it was basically to store cones and stuff for parent pickup. And then after Sandy Hook happened, we cut windows in it, and we've since got a new one. But the people are vetted with a live person at the entrance
Yeah.
to that high school driving. The other schools don't have that.
But they have the vestibules.
Right,
and
right.
security.
So in bringing the other schools, as parents said, well, what about my kid's school? We were able to bring in a lot of best practice at all the schools. One is to number all the windows from the outside so the police on a tactical operation, no. We were able to do that. We were able to put intruder style door locks in all the schools. We were able to film all the glass to make it shatter resistant. Bulletproof glass, very expensive. The buildings are old. The framing is old. It couldn't be done. Again, we have a security presence, armed and unarmed, in all schools during the regular school day. Everybody has the same procedures, knows the same procedures, whether it's lockdown, safe school mode. Surveillance cameras. When I first started, the only cameras were in Newtown High School. There were 32 of them. We have 507 cameras throughout the district. Yeah, it's a lot. So there was a lot of things we were able to do to bring the other schools up to the best we could.
Yeah.
Because that was the most important thing. Because parents were like, "Why want my kid to go to Sandy Hook?" Because it's safe. But it's all about balance.
Marcia, they put any operable windows in the school?
No,
No.
because it's AC'd, so
So its environment is enclosed.
yeah, the environment's enclosed. Other than the doors, the only way to get out is there's what do they call it? Captain
Oh,
steps,
the
ship
roof
steps
hatches
to
and
get
things.
roof access. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful building.
Okay, so we wanted to talk about what's in place here at WPS. So we shared emergency plans and certainly practice drill awareness of staff. Local police are visible here during morning drop-off. Building leadership ensures that all doors are locked during the day and directs staff and students to keep the doors closed. Staff are outside during drop-off and pickup, and we do have an SRO for the district. He spends a lot of time certainly at the larger school, but he is the SRO for the district. Campus is off of the main road and adjacent to the central office. That's the good side. I will get to the other side concern. Plans for evacuation, we do have them. Reunification and other emergencies are known to staff and leaders, and they're shared every year. All doors do remain locked to outside visitors. Shatter-resistant film on the main doors. Classroom doors do lock from inside. Thank you, Don. There is a panic button here. That's a huge criteria when we went. That's one of the main things. Is there a panic button? There was a school vulnerability assessment done just last year. I know it was right before I got here, as a matter of fact. That report certainly was shared. And then the culture here is everybody is a safety leader. I like the way Emily brought that up today. You see something, you say something. Emily, did you want to add anything on that? So now we come to some concerns, right? So in this building, it is adjacent to public areas. The general public utilize the back trail and tennis courts. Staff has to be vigilant and interface with the public to communicate school hour expectations. The property is surrounded by the Chaplain River, and students have access to that during outdoor time. Staff must be vigilant to ensure that students don't approach the boundary. These are all things that you're not the only school. This is not the only school that has these issues. Do you remember one of the ones we looked at in New Britain?
Oh.
I mean, it was a whole trail that it was this close to where the kids play. And so public could be walking and hiking with little children right there. So,
We have it, our trail is very close to the play program. It goes off and down by the river a little bit more, but it
absolutely.
is close.
Absolutely. Not all doors have card readers for entry. The intercom system is not wired in all areas and dependent on the phone system. Exterior doors do react. You talked about old doors, right? They do react to weather conditions, and that sometimes impacts closure, which is a safety issue and a security issue. Staff need to always kind of double check the doors upon entry and exit to make sure that they actually closed. The front door is open to the building upon entry. So again, we talked about the vestibule. There's no, right, you just get right into the building. Large window areas with no protection. The reach area is near the parking lot. So is the playground. No generator for backup power for water and heating when outages occur. Am I correct on that, Don?
Correct.
No security inside building for checking visitors or conducting surveillance of the campus or perimeter checks or any of the above. Secretary is in charge of doing that, checking visitors. There are no bollards. Mark talked about bollards so that you don't drive a truck or a car. We don't have those here. And of course, the age of the doors and windows on the interior certainly has an impact when we talk about concerns. But I wanted to share the good things in place, right? Because it's a balance, right? You know,
I just want to add one thing. Lori mentioned the intercom system, and you probably think, well, who really, the intercom doesn't work everywhere. Why? Well, I will tell you, if you have a bomb threat, and these are getting more and more popular with these idiots out there, the protocol for a bomb threat is, and the police will shut their two-way radios off, and no cell phones. So your communication options are limited to a landline telephone, and that PA system is your lifeline. That's why, and I just added it in there because people ask like, why the PA? That's the lifeline during a bomb threat incident for sure.
Lori, I just wanted to add,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we said that, but cameras on the side, we do have many cameras, and since we have done the vulnerability assessment, surveys for a couple of years, we've grown in that, and I don't know how many cameras we have now, but that definitely we've been fitted with way more than say 10
I
years
should
ago.
add that the vulnerability assessment
Yeah.
did lead to showing growth from,
Sure.
way back when till now. So that's a good thing. There's progress being made, right? So that's what we have. We didn't want to overwhelm you too much and scare the bejesus out of you either, but again, a balance of, what we know is best practice with the school that you have here. Questions, thoughts?
Would it be advantageous for us to have a training where the fire department, the emergency the EMTs and the school all have a training exercise?
Tabletop.
Yeah, absolutely. A tabletop
We'll get 'em
exercise,
all.
or by state law now, police and fire have the right to participate in your
Yes.
whether it's a fire drill or any other drill, participate, evaluate, and in the planning stages of any
That's
drill
part
you
of the
do.
statute.
It's part of state statute.
Because I know both those entities also have training every month, so maybe that's something we could think about, just so that we have a plan in place.
And I think so everyone knows their role. You
Right.
look at these situations, you see it on the news, you see it on television, you see law enforcement, fire, EMS. We've got active volunteers in terms of CERT teams. I can tell you that no one has ever collaborated with the schools to know their role. In other words, in the incident command system, and Mark knows this, 9 times out of 10 it would be the fire chief, unless there's a criminal activity,
Very true.
and then it's law enforcement. Those things.
There are a lot of people who didn't know that, like the fire, it didn't seem,
Yeah, I throw that I throw that question out there as an extra
they always
extra
say
credit.
police chief.
They always say police, and I said, all right, you got a bomb threat and the police
Yeah.
are there. Then all of a sudden, boom, who's in charge? And people are like, well, the police.
Mhm.
No, the fire department.
Mhm. That's true.
It would be, I think
Unless
it would
it's
be
a
beneficial to have that interaction with those services. Everyone knows what to do.
Absolutely.
I don't think, and I could be wrong, I've got to go to a fire meeting next, but I don't think the fire department is aware, and maybe they are, for example, where everyone is reconnected. In other words,
They
or in the event of a situation, where do the parents know what to do?
A reunification site, yeah.
So we work closely with the fire department, so they are really aware of our using that site for reunification. And in fact, here we actually take all the kids there, as a visit, and we show them the space And then we show the staff the space, so we reconnect every year with the fire department. So we do have a really strong relationship, I think, with them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do parents know where to go and where not to go?
No.
That is the problem.
That's what I was just gonna ask.
So,
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, no, and again, that's just a matter of, we had the same issue in Newtown.
Yeah.
Until we practiced. We actually practiced with pretend parents first.
Hmm.
So parents volunteered to be parents and they, picked up, and then we practiced because we wanted to make sure with our system that we'd have to check a parent in, reunite them with the child, make sure it's the parent, right? Before you release them and go, and how long it would take. It was, it's bumpy, so
It's
you have
bumpy.
to
It's a-
practice.
Yeah, it's a,
Right.
it's a
That
lot.
was gonna be my
Yes.
question is there a plan in place to start a process of making sure parents know where?
We talked
that
about
would
that at our,
communicate- Like that would be communicated and
Yes.
they would know how to do that.
Well, I think you were talking about maybe putting it in like back to school information, right? Where there's a blurb where you're putting all of that information in the event of emergency, and it's sort of buried in there, like with the in case of a flood, but no, in case of a evacuation. So it's not inciting
I think,
fear, but
I
yeah,
almost think
no,
that would be a
they're all good
separate
points,
thing.
but I think, all the schools, we talked at our last safety and security meeting that is something that's on our radar, we have to
Right.
do. We have to practice, we have to
Yep.
make sure parents know,
Mhm.
and everybody here needs to know what to do, cause I've had staff say, where do we go again? Maybe not here, but in other buildings, so it's just something that you have to do every year, and people forget.
Mm.
Plus you have new teachers, and you have parents who just moved in,
Right.
it's just like, new things that happen at the school, you have to keep saying it and doing it.
If we did something like that where we had all the different agencies all together, would that scare our kids? No.
No, you would do,
You-
you do
You
it
wouldn't do it
tailored.
without, you
Yeah.
do it without kids.
Do it without.
Yes, it's really for the adults to know.
Yes.
Cause kids are gonna follow, right?
Mhm.
Kids will follow, that's the key. You want them to know, yes, how to evacuate, all of the inside stuff, who to listen to whenever they hear anything. That's what we teach students. The other side of it is adults have to know because kids are gonna follow.
So if we did something like that, would we have a problem with getting the teachers to come here and do it an extra time?
What we've done when we've done these kinds of exercises is take some administrators, some teachers, we do a group, and you do a very deliberate,
Control.
planned, controlled tabletop. So everybody comes together and each group knows its role or learns it. And you're just more prepared the next time. And it's usually, we've done all kinds where you've thrown out a really serious issue. What do? And you let people problem solve it. And it's even difficult for a fireman or they have to think too because it's on the spot.
And I think when it comes to the parent communication, I think especially like if you talk about beginning of the year, it's going home, it's there for a parent. Parents are inundated with that, so they may not necessarily be as astute when they're reading through things. It almost
Yes.
feels like it might have to be
A separate
completely
communication.
separate communication.
It's that
from-
serious. It
Absolutely.
really is.
Because of
Yeah.
the level of intensity and the knowledge base needed.
I think
for
once-
this incident.
You make an excellent point. I think once there's so much that we know we have to do here.
Yeah.
There is. I think once we get it in place and know, okay, this is what we need to do next year, first thing, or later in the year, whenever we decide it's time to do this with parents, we put out a communication that is just about that.
That makes sense.
Is there on an annual basis, so year to year, is there a struggle? I mean, it seems fairly straightforward to do an audit and to say, here's what we're lacking and here's what we need. How far up the chain does that go before it's said, not this year?
So in any situation, any school district, the superintendent and, obviously when they get requests and we talk about these things, whether it's a safety and security committee or other, administrative council, we say, these are the things we really need. We know just from being educators, we really want someone at their front door, or we really want, the superintendent brings it as a budget request.
Sure.
And we see where it goes.
Sure.
That's what every district has to do. I think the board knows my stance. I come from a place of security. And so you're hard pressed to find schools that don't have security officers. I have to be really honest. You really are.
No, I agree. Well, I guess my question is, and I think the Board of Education is under the same pressures that you are. You simply can't provide everything you'd ideally like to provide. When it comes to a topic like this, if you take this and make it a separate box, and whether in municipal government, that's a capital item, and you say, this has nothing to do with the school budget. This has to do with making our kids safe. And I don't even care if it's a second referendum. I can't think of anybody that would deny. I appreciate everything that's done. I appreciate all the training that goes into it. And I also marvel at the fact that I see 50 holes that all of this is not going to matter. And I know money is a bottom line factor. I would wholeheartedly support any kind of initiative to get these things in place. Separate from the budget, I don't care how we do it. Think outside the box. We'll find a way to do it. We'll start a fund, whatever it is. But to give these things to the schools, to me, educators should be educating, and they're spending all their time. If they can worry just a little less, because we've spent the money to put something in place and keep our kids safer and let our educators educate, I wouldn't put a price tag on that.
Well said.
You're here.
Very well said.
And I gotta go to a fire meeting. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
You can tell
was a
them all
good
they
note to
learn
leave
now.
off.
Sorry. I'll see you
Yes,
tomorrow.
Other question. It's good to hear. Like, when you get the community engaged in that, this is important. These are our kids are. I can't think of anyone more important. So to me, we need all of those things, and it takes time, and that's fine. But again, you have other questions, obviously, as a community, and that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about, renovation versus not yet. But we wanted you to know what it could be, right?
At the risk of just putting you on the spot or the board on the spot in terms of this question, it just seems to me that the need of having SROs in all 4 buildings is super important. And so for me, when we discuss personnel, and you say you have 20 in Newtown, I wonder.
Well, I
How
will
we
tell you,
can-
I spoke with the local police. I met with all of them. I brought them in, and I'm meeting actually with all the selectmen tomorrow for lunch. But we don't have all SROs. We have armed security.
I understand.
A much better way to go, given all of the
Right.
things that.
I just
policing-
mean a person
Yes,
in
you
each
mean-
building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever that looks like
Yeah.
to allow there to be, especially living in a community that's so far apart from each other,
Mhm.
right? So you have 3 towns and lots of woods in between each of the towns. I think that asking Mike Epps or expecting Mike Epps to be
Right.
where he needs to be, if he's at Burnham and he needs to be at Washington Primary School. And I know we have amazing police and troopers and everybody else, but I just think for me that's an investment that's
Yep.
extremely
Yeah, and I agree as a parent and a community
Yep.
member
It's
also,
fine.
because my son, was the same age at the time of Newtown, so it really always hit home. And as a parent, even way back when, I'm like wanting that double vegetable out there, like
Yes.
why is it not here? And like you said, like I think Jim said it nicely, like we're worried about our budget for books on the plan, but it's different, right? It's not about school supplies or about
It's not.
teachers. It's something bigger.
well, and I
So-
think the reality, Pam, is that Sandy Hook is close to our community, so it
is,
affects
yeah.
all of us.
Oh, yeah,
in
I
a
didn't
very-
say in a way
No,
that
no.
it
I'm
didn't- yeah,
saying that
yeah.
it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty close to home in lots of ways.
Because we know,
Right.
And so
Exactly.
I think that allows it to be, a huge
right.
part for everybody.
And I think we've learned that to have the mindset of not meeting, like it won't happen here, you can't say that anymore. So,
Yeah,
Not hardly.
And there's so many other things, right? I mean, there are things we can do aside from that
Yes.
too, aside from personnel, making sure we do practice things that need to be practiced. We might be able to look at how the front door is with the, Donna and I talked about that earlier today. What could we do if we had to? But again, a lot more decisions have to be made about the schools themselves, because that'll take things in a different direction. Obviously, I always say, you know, you're seeing Sandy Hook was built, right? It's a modern, state-of-the-art, very safe building. We didn't have that before. So, you know, unfortunately, it took a tragedy to get there, and not every district can do that. So what, you know, I always think, though, if you think about building a new house, right? And you're definitely going to include air conditioning. All the things are much easier new than they are trying to get them in old, right? They're more expensive, it's more challenging. Think of that's the mindset of, there's a lot we can do, it's just a little more challenging, that's all. A lot more challenging at times. Yeah. Other thoughts, comments?
Chat questions?
Oh, great.
Jessica Labarca, what kind of safety and security training is required of WPS staff currently?
Required. So we, in the beginning of the year, we go through every protocol, making sure everyone understands the steps to each protocol. And then throughout the year, we do evacuation, reverse evacuation, shelter in place, lockdown. And, you know, we do that throughout the whole 10 months that we're in school. So at least once a month, we have a drill. And at the beginning of the year, we have at least 2 to start out.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
We've also had opportunities to have our school resource officer come to our classrooms and help us determine the best ways to lock down our specific rooms and stuff like that. So.
And then, as I said, our visit to the firehouse has multiple reasons. It allows the staff to acquaint themselves with the site. They know that that's our reunification site, so they see all the rooms. They have a floor plan of it. The floor plan's identified which classrooms go where. And then the students have sort of this little orientation as well. So they have a sense of, this is a safe place for me. And of course, our fire department is amazing in the way they interact with students. So they
Should have told
feel-
Jim that.
Yeah, they just, I know, they feel so connected with those individuals and supported. And this year, we actually had police and the emergency EMTs there as well. So we had basically what did we call it? I think just an emergency personnel day. So they got a sense from all components of our town. So we try to get the kids in that way.
And professional development too. We had
Yes.
training, specialized training.
2 more from Jessica. A big concern of mine as a parent is that WPS campus is a dead zone for most cell service carriers. So that's a comment.
Verizon.
Is it a little bit harder to, because we have a lot of that. I don't
Jim
think
could have answered that one.
Yeah, not just here, that's for sure.
Just so you know, we do have a Verizon repeater. And Verizon was nice enough to give us that and install it. However, AT&T will not. And I
So
haven't-
better for one and not for the other.
AT&T has service.
Yeah, I have
AT&T is
Because I have
service.
AT&T and I have
Oh,
full
that's
service.
good.
What
in
carrier you
Viva.
use for, what carrier you use for district personnel?
If there was an incident,
I
they just
don't know.
For district that have phones.
Like if it
Maybe
was here and
Nicole.
kids were-
Nicole, what is the
District carrier.
the
what do we
district
use?
for
carrier
your phones.
for cell?
We don't really have it.
So a question on the floor is if there was an incident that the reunification is at the firehouse, if it's a critical incident, the reunification requires that parents and students are reunified. If it's a situation for which we need to relocate, that is a very different kind of situation. For example, we don't have water. We're not gonna have water for a period of time. We may go to Chapag and continue our learning at Chapag. Buses may go to Chapag. Dismissal will be from there. So there are 2 different reasons. Reunification is very different. It's a critical incident for which families need to be reunited. The other is relocation for heat, water, things like that.
You evacuated the building and you're moving to a different.
A different
place.
learning space, yes.
Very different.
We'd rather shut it.
Does that help?
Yes, it was more like, so you're saying basically for like an evacuation drill, that would be the reunification spot? Like not a drill, you know what I mean, like a emergency.
If it's
Yes.
an emergency critical incident where there's gonna be reunification, it would
Okay.
take place at the firehouse.
Thank you.
One more from Jessica. Do parents get notified when there are lockdown drills? Just wondering about how parents can help their young children especially understand these and support their fears/concerns.
Great question. Oh, did-
At Chapag, we generate a weekly flyer that goes out to staff and students and faculty and local residents. And when we schedule safety drills, we disclose that information ahead of time to the residents and the parents, so they do have notice. And when I'm finished with drills and we're finished with drills up there, I disclose to the kids when we're done with the drills to go home and talk to mom and dad about it. Go home and discuss what we've done.
Similarly.
So
Yeah, so here, usually the notification goes after the drill to let parents know that something had happened that day. And we do not do it for fire evacuation or reverse evacuation. I typically do it if we're doing a lockdown, because that is the one drill that probably creates more questions that I want families to be able to.
It's a lot more traumatizing.
So that's an after.
That's it?
Good for now, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyone else have a final question? Comment?
Yeah, comment. I just wanted to say, because you guys talk about see something, say something. Even when we did the Alice training, it was the same way. We
Yes.
shoot the guns and everything.
Right.
Thing I noticed right off the bat was that see something, say something, but you got to do something.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you guys are talking like this, I'm going, okay. I love that idea of the outer perimeter, because it's the
Mhm.
outer perimeter.
It is.
That's a key to your success right off the bat.
Right.
The quicker you can locate them, the better off you are in the rest of the way through.
Right.
So you can have all the doors you want and whatever. Did they ever consider drones?
Who's they? You mean here?
Anyone ever consider drones for that outer perimeter? Like for instance, from the shack?
Yep.
Because it's easy to establish something up and have an eye in the sky too, to give you an even more visual of what's incoming, you know, in any event. And somebody that's really trained, and like you said, because training, that's another thing. Training is so key. So
The
key.
Newtown Police Department does have a drone.
Uh-huh.
We had an incident with a swatting
Oh, yeah.
on November 30th. They brought the drone and did it just to get the practice in. I'm not sure of local law enforcement here or state police, Troop ARL, what they have, but maybe it's something to inquire about. Or if you're going to do some kind of exercise, bring them in.
It's a good piece of technology to have on that outer side.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good thought. We've also had people that were using drones, do you remember?
Yeah.
That were just,
To like see.
well, yeah, and that causes disruption because kids get scared, staff get
Well, because
scared.
you see it, you're like, what?
You
is
hear it.
happening?
Exactly, and you hear it, yeah.
hear it.
Yeah, somebody,
So
Oh,
you just mentioned Alice training. Do you have staff do Alice training?
So, yes,
Yes.
we've had Alice training and Mike Epps was part of that. He got trained and then he trained staff,
Okay.
yes, yes,
I was just gonna say, we have a number of drones that should.
I was just thinking that.
yes.
You've got kids that could probably teach staff how to operate.
Absolutely.
My son would.
Yeah.
Totally true.
And they have very sophisticated
There you go.
cameras in them, so they're very clear.
They
facial
are.
recognition, resolution.
Yeah.
So these are nice, these are serious drones.
They are.
You've seen aerial photography in school. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Ben's out there.
Ben.
Ben's drawing.
I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
Very, really helpful.
Thank you very much for coming.
Sure, I had to step out for a second for an emergency. Did you mention anything about the manner in which the school at Sandy Hook and modern schools are designed? What thing that impressed me when I visited the school was you walk into that school, you have no idea what the classrooms are. They are located away from the entrances. You would be in that school for a long time before you encountered a classroom.
Yeah, because it's built on wings, and if you notice, there's really no true 90-degree angle. That main hallway, it slopes, and that's for a reason.
Yeah, there's no coming from around the corner.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
circular.
And you couldn't see, I mean, they didn't just make it so it was safe and secure, they also made it engaging for kids. They didn't want to lose that. So there are sections at the end of hallways that look like trunks of trees, excuse me, with little, you can go in and read a book and be with your teacher. It's really, I mean, they really made sure that it was designed for being engaging and being safe and secure at the same time.
It feels like a school. It might not look like a true school from the outside, but when you're in it, it's a school. It feels like school.
But how comforting to know of all the things that are in place.
One more from Jessica.
Oh.
Regarding the cell service comment, in case that a classroom is locked down, are there alternative ways for teachers to contact people outside of the school?
Everyone has a phone.
So if there's
They
a
all
phone
have-
in every room.
There's a phone in
There's a
every
phone
room
in every
that
room.
they can dial out and call 911. They also can cause the school to be in a safe situation and call their own lockdown if they see something. They can act on it and say, we are in lockdown, and everyone will go in lockdown. So they have that opportunity. I will say that for the
There's your
most part, our cell phones at school, seemingly our staff, they work.
Yeah.
Texting works really well. Most people who have AT&T, they have no problem at all calling out,
I have
receiving calls.
Verizon here.
Well,
and I've never
yeah.
had a phone.
So the repeater does help.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like that has been a concern that has
Yeah.
risen to me
Yes.
needing a solution.
And even over at the Riverwalk, when that was always a big issue to use the phone, that has
Yeah.
improved greatly.
Yes.
With a modem over there as well.
Yeah.
So
And they have Wi-Fi over
Right.
there.
And
the
whenever
town put
we're
that in.
like we take advantage of the Riverwalk frequently. The kids go over there
Yeah.
and we do lots of activities over there. Our walkie-talkies even are strong enough to
Yes.
reach into the building. So everyone
Yeah.
who's outside has to have a walkie-talkie.
Do you
Plus-
remember my walkie worked over at the Judy Black Garden?
Yeah.
Oh, we were on like during
They did a field
Green
trip.
Week, we did a field trip, and I carried a walkie and we tested it, and I was at Judy Black Park and Garden, and it worked into the building.
So they're very powerful, strong.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Thank you.
I like the phone in the elevator.
No, that's
Since
true.
I
Just in
can
case
leave
you-
the floor
In
and
case you
go.
get stuck.
Yeah,
No, that's true.
That's
That
true.
it will dial 911 directly.
dial 911, I can go up and down. So if he's
Thank you
down
so
here, I'm
much,
going up.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I just noticed secure school, so we were talking, because we have that, see? It's the language.
Yeah.
I'm used to safe school mode, and so is Mark, but it's called secure school here. So I just wanted to clarify that before you walked out of the room.
I can get back to
And
you.
I'm gonna collect these, yeah. Thank you all for coming out tonight, we appreciate it.